Hey, howdy. Hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Greetings, Cretans.
The main Cretan himself.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. We're happy to be with you again today. It's been a while, been a month or so.
In the world of Cretans.
Yep.
You are their master. Master Cretan.
Well, I do try.
Yeah.
What's new with you?
Oh my God. Just, life things. I'm going to England. I'm going to England Monday.
Yeah, nice.
April 4th, flying out. Going to be the 5th through the 12th, I think it is now.
Nice. Yeah. Going back to Fuller's, or where are you going?
Going to it's a part of Fuller's, which is Dark Star.
Okay.
We're going to brew Gale's Prize Old Ale,
Oh,
which
nice.
is kind of an old ale, big old ale. And one of the things they do, they have like a Solara going of the previous batches of Gale's Prize Old Ale, and so a little bit of that gets added into the batch. So I was told that it could be possible to taste that Solara before it goes in. So I'm looking forward to that. My good friend Henry Kirk at Fuller's, he's gonna host us, and then my good friend Neil Spake, he's going with us.
Oh, nice.
And then we're going down to Brighton for the brew. Then we're gonna probably hit a few places there. Then we'll hit Harvey's. One of my favorite places in the world is Harvey's, and we'll chug a whole bunch of Harvey's beer with Henry. Henry used to work at Harvey's.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah.
And then we're off up to Birmingham, and we're going to visit the West Midlands, which they refer to as the Black Country, and we're going to go to Bantham's, Hook Norton, which is kind of out of that region, but Hook Norton, Bantham's, Holden's, Sarah Hughes, drink our fill of mild and other wonderful Midlands beers, and then probably do something in the city there in the core city, some of the more modern brewers, and then a quick trip down to Cardiff. Going to visit the new Brains facility. They moved their brewery within Cardiff to a new, more modern brewery. Visit them, and then that's the trip.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. You get to Wales and all over. Brighton.
Yep.
Known for Pride and Prejudice, among other things. And
I'm looking forward to it. You have any trips coming up?
Yeah, I'm going to Mexico City next weekend.
Nice.
Doing what is it called? The MASH Homebrew Cup. So competition for homebrewers in Mexico City. Doing some homebrewing classes there at my friend Lucia's brewery. And we're going to do some collaboration brews. Randy Mosher is going to be there. Michael Tonsmeyer is going to be there. And so we'll do some native fruits of Mexico and styles of Mexico, including poke. Do some poke tasting, which is like a wild fermented pineapple drink. A lot of interesting stuff. I love going to Mexico. There's just so much culture there beyond Taco Bell. It's great. It's really great down there.
Nice. Yeah. I imagine they wouldn't have any Taco Bells in Mexico.
No, they just have outstanding tacos. And
I bet you they still have McDonald's.
Yeah, they do, I think.
See,
they're not terribly plentiful, if I remember right.
But as an American, it is my God-given right to be able to use the bathroom at any McDonald's in the world.
There you go. Yeah. Instead of having them charge you a quarter for it. Yeah.
Just the way things work. You need to be allowed.
Yeah.
Um,
Hey, exciting news. I just got an email the other day that How to Brew is going to publish in Portuguese in August.
nice. Yeah, there's been a lot of translations of like the yeast book.
Yeah.
And, it's just every once in a while, like the yeast book shows up in the mail in some language. I'm just like, oh, what's
Yeah.
this?
Korean, Italian. Yeah.
Chinese. Yeah,
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
yeah. It was pretty exciting. I'd like to have a copy of every language it's in, but I don't think I do. Only I see people post them online in different languages. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. I didn't get one.
Yeah. It is pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully in fact, How to Brew is in Polish. It came out in Polish this past year and had been planning on going to Poland at some point, perhaps this summer, but
Not right now.
Yeah, not right now. Not right so close there to Ukraine at the moment, but
Yeah.
I sure would love to go there.
Yeah, me too. I've always wanted to go.
Yeah.
Seems like a great place to visit. That whole area is interesting.
Yeah. 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 So much history, so many unique beers that we think we know what they taste
Mhm.
like.
Yeah,
And yeah.
yeah, yeah. That whole region, very cool. We did a kind of a collab. I sort of participated in a collab of 20 Swedish brewers and a Ukrainian brewer, uh, and so kind of jumped in on joining that digitally
Nice.
in support of Ukraine. So hopefully that works out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure who else is
Jumping in on Ukrainian.
jumping in on Ukraine or is planning some travel for some great beer things. Our dear friend John Blickman.
Yes.
They sponsor this show, so you don't have to pay for it. BlickmanEngineering.com. Check them out. They got all sorts of great stuff on there, and they do a lot to support the homebrew community and the commercial brew community. They got everything from your basic starter equipment, still high quality, but a little more basic in the anvil stuff. And then they got the Blickman Engineering line that goes up into commercial brewing sizes. So if you're looking to open a brewery, or if you just want to get started in home brewing, check out Blickman Engineering, BlickmanEngineering.com. Send a nice email to John Blickman, feedback@BlickmanEngineering.com, and tell him how much you appreciate he pays for the show. All right, so today we're going to talk about SOPs.
Yes.
And why you would want SOPs, how they benefit you. Let's kick it off with just this. How, John, or what is an SOP? What does SOP stand for? It's an acronym, right?
Right. It stands for Standard Operating Procedure. And so today's show is geared more to the commercial side of brewing. And if you own a brew pub or a small brewery that's more than just you and your buddy, more people brewing on a weekly basis, it helps to do things consistently if you're going to produce a consistent product.
Right.
And so having a documented standard operating procedure for a process really helps make sure that you and your coworkers are on the same page.
Right. Yeah. And I think, possibly this has some value in home brewing. If you and a friend or a couple of friends get together and, share equipment and do all that, I've come across groups where it's like, yeah, we have like the club brew plant. And then we, I imagine you could utilize it there. I know at Heretic, we use a ton of SOPs, everything from, cleaning the mash tun to starting up the brewery to making the canned cocktails, process for, cleaning the canning line, for, adjusting the canning line, pitching yeast, cleaning fermenters, everything in there, and it all started with, just one SOP, and then another and another, and you add these, and you eventually have a book of these. And one of the things I remember, one of their new guys, Ben Edwards, back in the day, when he started, he would spend his lunchtime reading the SOP manual. And it's a great training tool, because then you're sure everybody's getting trained the same way. Everybody's working from the same plan, from the same hymnal, singing from the same hymnal, right?
That's right. In fact, that brings up another aspect of SOPs, and that is federal regulations. Mm. There are federal regulations that from the Food Safety Modernization Act that was fully implemented in 2018, a couple, 3 years ago, that requires you to have, or to be able to demonstrate that all your employees, and this pertains to breweries, have been trained to their jobs and that they are competent. Mm-hmm. So having a printed manual that everyone can refer to is a way to demonstrate that.
Right. The same thing goes for other things like OSHA. If somebody wants to enter a closed vessel, you have to, in a closed space, you have to have a written plan for going in, and essentially that's also an SOP.
Right.
How do you get set up? How do you make sure it's safe? How do you all those things?
There's a lot of regulations that vary depending on the scale of the brewery. Mm. But even very small breweries, 1 barrel systems, are subject to a few of these requirements. Mm-hmm. And so having SOPs, going back to that, allows you to demonstrate, to it's documented, it's right there, and show any inspector, or God forbid you have an accident at work, to demonstrate that you are not incompetent.
Well, if I could demonstrate that I'm not incompetent, that'd be huge.
Yeah, but sometimes it can, having SOPs can mean the difference between a slap on the wrist and plant closure. Mm. In the case of an accident, for example.
Right. Okay. Let's do this. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we will have more about SOPs and what they mean for a brewery right after this. All right, we're back. So John, we're talking SOPs, and you mentioned it could be the difference between a slap on the wrist or getting your plant closed down. What are the most important SOPs? I mean, I think this becomes daunting for people when they're like, well, so I need this huge book of SOPs. You just start with one, right? And just everything that, whatever is most beneficial to you is the one I would start with, right?
Sure. Yeah, for small operations, having a written document that just, for instance, describes how you are going to turn on the brew plant, mm-hmm. and start that brew, how you gauge your water to grist ratio, to mm-hmm. know when you're trying to brew a particular recipe, how do you know you're at the right level? Because mm-hmm. If you and your buddy are mashing in differently, those beers are going to be different, and that mm-hmm. can be potentially an issue. So for an SOP, and it helps to have them written down, but they can either, they can be manual, if they were, as it were, just handwritten, or they can be on a computer, on a laptop that's available, whatever. You use Google Docs, I believe, Jamil, right?
Yes, put all our SOPs on Google Docs or OneDrive.
Yeah, you just need, a version number, a revision number. and a date, and you know, and a person to sign off on it. You know, somebody that's responsible to make sure that that SOP is up to date, and you know, and that means that it's controlled, because that's another aspect when it comes to federal law, is that you must show that these are controlled, that they're active.
John was asking, hey guys, jumped into this a little late. Are there third-party consultants, companies that brewery startups can use to establish SOPs?
I would imagine so. I don't know for sure, but I would certainly imagine there is. I know I'm working with Carl Ockert. Many of you may be familiar with his work. He wrote, what was it called? The Brewery, got one right here. MBA Practical Handbook for the Specialty Brewer a few years ago. Familiar with these titles. He wrote those, and now he's writing one called the Craft Brewer's Handbook, which will be publishing later this year. And he discusses a lot of the regulations that apply to breweries now. The Food Safety Modernization Act for one, OSHA for another. And so, yeah, I would imagine that with this these federal laws, that there are, you know, the equivalent of tax consultants available to help you get started. And then he's going to have templates in the book that give you examples. You know, an SOP doesn't have to be complicated.
Right.
It simply has to lay out the steps of what you do to help guide you through the process. Right. And it doesn't have to be detailed. It just has to be a basis for doing a job consistently and safely.
Well, and you know, we do you know, our first SOPs were just, you know, to open up Word, or, you know, whatever word processor you use, and, you know, give it a title as to what the process is, right? And then you know, try writing it out. If you were to tell somebody how to do a job, that's what you put down on it. And then you can go and, you know, rework it later on. You can, you know, revise these things as your process changes. It doesn't lock you in forever on a process. In fact, it actually helps identify, you know, what may be flaws in your process. Once you write it down, writing something down really kind of, you know, spells it out. Okay, here's what we're doing. And then, like John's saying, when you have you're working with your buddy, even if it's just the two of you in a you know, a small brew pub that you've opened, it's good to just write these down, and then you can say, oh, well, I've been doing it differently. I haven't been doing it that way. And then maybe you decide what's the best way to do it, or you find another way that works better. And there's reasons people have been doing things differently. So, you know, once you write it out, you just write a paragraph, and then you can kind of, you know, break that out into, you know, separate steps and statements, just, you know, bullet points, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and, you know, kind of add to it. And, you know, it's sometimes the little things that get missed, especially if you're trying to bring in, let's say your brew pub has grown, and now you're going to hire somebody part-time who's a home brewer, who's all excited and wants to come work in a brewery, and is all excited about being the keg washer and maybe doing keg fills and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Instead of having to, you know, as people come and go, instead of having to, you know, hand teach them, you know, right at the beginning every time, you can hand them, you know, the SOP for this and say, okay, read through this, and then once you feel like you're ready with that, we'll do it together the first time. And then you walk them through, and you show how all the steps in the SOP are important. You know, don't skip checking the sanitizer level or whatever it might be, or temperature on the, you know, on the wash tank or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Those things, you know, it just makes training somebody new for your brewery so much easier. and then you're sure that all of them are, have the same process. And as you grow, that stuff can be, quite beneficial.
Right.
And as you're saying, SOPs, the reason you want to do SOPs is improvement in performance of people,
Yeah.
improvement in consistency, and that consistency leads to better consistency of your beer, better safety, which we all want that. We don't want anyone to get hurt in the brewery. And then in compliance, complying with the FDA, complying with OSHA, complying with TTV, all this stuff. So it can be extremely helpful. I know it seems like a chore, but those spare minutes, or when you're trying to figure out a new process of for yourself, it's like, okay, when you get that, you buy that small canning line, or from somebody new or used, you get a little bit of training. Somebody talks you through starting it up, write all that down, make that an SOP, and that way you're sure you're not missing something that, oh, I forgot that they told us to flip this little valve here.
Close that chain guard before starting it up.
Right. Safety, and just basic functioning, how you run things.
There's OSHA is a real good example. I came from aerospace and quality. I was quality manager for a while, and of course the controls that you have to operate under in aerospace are much tighter than modern food safety, but they're catching up. You have ISO 9000 quality management systems. You have OSHA, safety management in the food safety. Well, for OSHA, there's a basic requirement that as an employer, you must provide a safe working environment. And there is also provisions in OSHA that as an employee, you must adhere to the safe working practices that are dictated by the employer. So it's a two-way street. It's not all just on the brewery owner, it's also on you as an employee. And so having an SOP that describes the job to be done and describes the PPE to be worn, and and cautions to be aware of, that ensures communication between you and your coworkers, and helps avoid accidents. And again, if you have, and let's say there is an accident, and there's always an accident, at least in my case, if it's a hot water burn, or you bang your head on a piece of pipe or something, cut yourself, or snap off someone's mash rake in the rakes, inside the mash tun.
I'm not gonna invite you to my brewery anymore.
But anyway,
dangerous.
There's these things. If there are clear provisions, in your SOP to avoid these sorts of things or to be aware of them, that shows diligence. And should there be a major incident and the OSHA inspector comes look at it, you say, no, this was in place. This was an accident. It was not negligence on our part, kind of thing. And that's the difference between slap on the wrist and a major fine.
Right. Yeah. If you're working with dangerous chemicals, dangerous, liquids, hot liquids, moving motors and parts and things like that can, chop a person up. You have to make sure that, everybody that's in that location is properly aware of the dangers, has proper safety gear, does, and if they're involved in using that stuff, you need to have those SOPs as well. Somebody gets hurt, they're gonna look at, were they properly trained? were they given, plenty of warning about, what the dangers are? And if you say, yeah, everybody gets this SOP book, everybody is, shown these and made to read these, before they start any jobs, and then they're given, individual training. So yeah, that's absolutely helpful.
Yeah. So, yeah, what sorts of topics did you have in your SOPs, Jamil?
Well, I'll tell you that after the short break.
Okay.
Let's take another quick short break. And when we're back, I will kind of reveal some of the SOPs that we've done at Heretic right after this. All right, we're back. Talking SOPs, standard operating procedures, and what they mean to the brewery. I don't have a folder pulled up on what SOPs. Let's see here. Let's see if I can make that magic happen through the use of the computer.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right. So we have maintenance SOPs. We have a brewing SOP. We have we make canned cocktails, and so the order in which things happen and exactly how they happen makes a difference in the resulting product that we're trying to do. Okay. And TTB compliance and all that. So we have an SOP for blending up the cocktails. We have an SOP for cleaning our still, SOP for carbonation. There's an SOP for using the pilot system, for the centrifuge, for the fermenter cleaning, using the keg washer, how to use the software that we use to track the distillery. It's called Hoochware. So there's SOP for that. For making our habanero infused double IPA, there's a SOP for that. SOP for doing PCR in the lab. SOP for when there's a power outage. Transferring tank to tank. Operating still. Cold brew coffee.
Inside those SOPs, I mean, what do your topics within the SOP consist of? Like PPE, required equipment, what sort of things do you cover?
Let's go to the fermenter CIP. There's tank emptying and CIP preparation. So there's confirm that the glycol jackets are off on the tank to be cleaned. Step 2, hook up a 1.5-inch gray brewery hose to the dump valve on the fermenter. Ensure that this hose is long enough to reach the nearest trench drain. 3, open the dump valve, dump all remaining beer yeast hops into the drain. Make sure to have a nearby water hose in the drain as well, helping spray the dumping liquid down the length of the drain. If you dump too fast, the drain will overflow, so you'll have to regulate the speed of dumping. Do this until the tank is empty and CO2 pressure is relieved. Verify on tank pressure gauge. 4, open the valves on both COP and blow-off arms. Remove the manway door. Open the racking arm valve to expedite the venting of CO2 from the tank. Rinse the interior of the tank with a garden hose to remove loose soil and remaining yeast. Scrub manway door opening on all sides and edges with a blue scrubby pad and rinse. 6, hose off the manway door gasket. Remove the door and remove from door and soak in hot Percobrite solution. Scrub the manway door, rinse and set aside. 7, remove all fittings on the bottom cone of the tank. These vary from tank to tank. Normally include racking or blah, 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 blah. Let's see. Parts soaking. Let's see. Attach the danger, caustic, and use sign. Then there's a rinsing section. There's a caustic section. Tells you how much caustic you'll need. The PPE to wear. How to transfer the hot liquor to the tank safely. Pump speeds. Then the second rinse. Let's see. There's an acid section. There's a third rinse. There's a pressure test to make sure that none of the there's no leaks.
Okay. Yeah. So you have verification
These
steps
are
in there too.
Then there's sanitization cycle. And then there's cleanup. Total of 77 steps. Clean and fermenter.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's comprehensive. I mean, as you say, you walk the person through just like you're training them how to do the job.
We haven't updated this. Last update was January 22nd of 2019. And so, we started this back in, 2010. And, over 9 years, it got updated, changed, depending on, improved ways of doing things. And, now it's solid. We probably don't have to edit this for quite a while. It's probably just going to stay, very standard.
Yeah, unless you change out a piece of equipment used in it. Yeah.
Right. Here's another one, power outage. So when the power goes out, we try and have everything, come back up safely. But there's, a few things that don't. If there's power outage, turn off the compressor, or
The hydraulic equipment.
yeah. There's an air dryer that needs to be restarted after power out. You need to check these two glycol pumps, the VFD, and then we've got pictures that show here's the one VFD that controls this chiller. Here's the other VFD,
That's
and
great.
they should be on, and you should see these numbers on them. If you don't, here's how you get them going. There's one for the tap room services. And this SOP used to be quite long. And there used to be, quite a number of steps you had to take in order to get everything powered back up. And so it required, somebody from the brewery. Actually, you had to, at one point, you had to climb up on the roof, and which is this building's 30-foot high, so there's a big access ladder. You had to go up there. You had to remove a panel. You had to bring tools to remove a panel from the chiller, then get into this box that housed this VFD in the chiller to this circulation pump, and you had to restart that. So over the years, I'm just like, this is terrible, because like once a year the power goes out. So we ended up rewiring it so the VFD lives in the brewery now, and while the chiller's on the roof, which is quite ideal. So
now a VFD is a very frightening device, or what?
Yes. A variable frequency drive, right? So it changes the frequency that goes to the to run a motor. And when you're working with glycol to chill your tanks, the glycol is always circulating, so you need those pumps on, those VFDs on. And some of them will restart, and some of them they hide the programming so well you can't get them to restart running. But we got all that done, and they're in there where people can see them. So we trimmed down something that was like a 20 item long list of things to check and fix, and required somebody to be in the brewery. And if the power goes out on the weekends and there's nobody in the brewery, the tap room, some of those people aren't familiar with it. But having the SOP in this case, we saw what a large chore it was. Every time the power went out, we had to go through all these steps. So we started looking at, okay, how can we improve this part of our process? And the SOP was a big part of that. Really helped identify what things we could fix, what things we could change. And now the SOP for power outage is really, just take a look and see if you see lights on these boxes, and you're good to go.
So that's great. Yeah, that's a great way of process improvement. Facilitated by the SOP. That's awesome.
Yeah. I really am a big believer in the use of SOPs and their benefits to improving your product. Because I also, I look a lot at the SOPs. When we started making the cocktails, the canned cocktails, the question was, what about oxidation? What about, safety? How do we, mix things in at the, the correct, temperature? How do we get things pasteurized? We're working with fruits, we're working with alcohols, we're working with, a bunch of different things. So the RTD SOP has a day 1, a day 2, day 3, packaging day. There's special instructions for things like, some of the moonshines we do, or to make some of the ingredients, like we make our own ginger beer broth for our Moscow Mule. And so we do that. We actually, instead of using like a fake extract, we actually make our own extract from powdered ginger.
Oh, nice.
In the distillery kettle. So there's an SOP for that. All these little things, result in, getting things right. Yeah. For example, they have, in this, the hoses that you use are adding, it says it adds an 8% to the total volume needed, helps account for the error. So we have to get a very precise amount of water into the tank and alcohol into the tank. And we have to make sure that at the end, the ABV is correct. And, you can't just wing it. You need to know exactly. So that, and making sure it's mixed. We have a certain speed that we use on a diaphragm pump for a certain amount of time in order to get it to mix properly. We have carbonation. We have all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't know all those aspects went into those cocktails. But yeah, I'm sure the same thing for your canned beers and for bottled beers as well.
Right. Those, it's more standard brewing. The reason the SOPs was so important with the cocktails is we hadn't done anything like that before. So we had to come up with a process that, again, you're able to pasteurize things without overheating things you didn't want to overheat. It's a tricky thing. And, we're trying to, have consistency and quality. And that's, and that SOP changed a few times. We came up with a plan, then we're like, well, that's not working quite right. And so we made sure to always update the SOPs, because we bring in new people, we're a fairly big brewery, and the people, move on or move up. And the people that are doing it may move to a different job. So you need to be able to train new people. The SOPs are hugely beneficial when it comes to that.
And the fact that you have SOPs for other processes allows you to create the new SOP for that new product pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And and you're able to borrow that technology, borrow that method, and have a very strong process from the get-go, on this new product. A few tweaks, as you said, but you had a really good starting point that way.
Well, and you can break it down into smaller segments, and utilize those segments in other SOPs. So, for example, cleaning the fermenter. You can have an SOP on mixing up the caustic and the acid, things like that. Working with the we have a pneumatic dispensing system for caustics and acids, and so that in and of itself, you can't just walk up and just, I'm going to start pouring myself some caustic. You have to gear up properly. You have to make sure that the pressures are correct. You have to make sure that all this stuff is happening and that you're acting in a a safe manner.
Have all your lab animals lined up. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Well, we got a bunch of lab SOPs as well. There's a lot of things that you know, you just really need to consider how you work. And I think SOPs have led to quality improvement at Heretic over the last decade.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all.
Yeah. You know who else is big on quality and improving quality?
I know some guys over in Nevada.
Right. Yeah, and Reno, our
Yeah.
good friends at Brew Chatter. They're all about quality. And you can tell that when you get into their store, when you talk to them about brewing, when you taste the fine beers they have on tap.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's they're all about quality. And that's one of the reasons they've decided to help sponsor this show, is because I don't know, they believe that we have something to say about quality.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or they just like us.
That could be it too.
That's
well,
like it. Yeah.
Me anyway. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. I'm sure they like you. Me, meh.
Yeah.
Everybody comes to me just to get to you. That's what they want. They want some Palmer. And they see me as a less adept gateway to get to you.
Yeah, I don't consider you a sidekick, Jamel.
I don't even reach sidekick status, is what you're saying. I'm just a lackey. Just a lackey.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well.
Our friend Nick Ziegler just texted me wondering if we were live. Yes, we are.
Hey, Nick. Yes, we are alive.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm glad to be alive. I consider that a win.
Yeah, definitely.
Tomorrow we're going to do live the Brew Chatter Nevada Championship Brew Strong competition thing at 3 p.m. Pacific. It's going to be you, me, Mitch Steele, and the guys from Brew Chatter, and John Tull. We're all going to gather, and some of us virtually, but you've been sent the beers, and Mitch has been sent the beers, and then we'll also have beers at our location, and we're going to determine the champion of this giant competition. It's kind of like a Masters competition where there's multiple rounds, and in this round people were challenged to brew. They all had to brew 3 different styles of beer to qualify, and I think one is a double hazy IPA. One is a Belgian dark strong, I think, with some sort of spice or fruit or something. And then the other is an Oktoberfest. So challenging, 3 different yeasts, 3 very different types of brewing, right? The great malty lager, a Belgian ale that's spiced, that's higher ABV. We get the hazy IPA. I mean, they gotta really work this thing. You got to know what you're doing to brew all 3 of those well. And so we're going to choose the champion using those beers.
Okay, so not just best of show, but like best person that did all 3 styles the best.
Right. Well, this is our first year, so we're gonna have to work out what
figure it out. Okay.
We'll figure it out. But I think there's 3 people that have gotten to this final round, and there's 3 beers apiece, so there's only 9 beers to taste.
Okay.
But it's going to determine the champion, which is kind of exciting. And we, the thought was we could do this in the future. I think Brew Chatter supplied the ingredients for this final round for them to brew. So, everybody's using the same ingredients, and everybody's, it comes down to who's the best brewer, right? So I think that's kind of exciting. And then we'll do it next year. Their goal is to make a great event that is, nationwide or worldwide, where,
Wow.
there's qualifying events and then, the later rounds. And, we were hoping to kind of, make it a big party, for the people submitting their entries, and maybe a big party at the end when the winner's announced.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Going back to the SOPs here, Nick asked an interesting question. He says, SOPs are so crucial to success in quality management. Do you distinguish between one-point lessons and work instructions? I'm not familiar with the one-point lesson terminology, but work instructions, yeah, does make sense. Those are probably the majority of the SOP types.
A one-point lesson is a simple, visual, and often point-wise description of a task. This means a standard which describes how a task should be performed. An OPL is made by using pictures, symbols, simple text, and is a short document.
Okay.
Right. I have seen these, and
single sheet kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say like our current power outage SOP is an OPL. Like,
okay. Wow.
Here's a picture of the thing, walk over to it, check that the number on the screen is this. If not, press that button. And then, like the buttons are circled, and it's very simple, straightforward, because we wanted something that anybody at the brewery could get us get the thing straightened out, or figure out if everything's okay after an outage. So we've got people that their only training is in pouring beer. They're smart people, but they're not familiar with a lot of this equipment. And so this is more of I think a one-point lesson. What was the other term that he used? Was work instructions.
Yeah.
One-point lesson versus work instruction. Let's see. One-point lesson is a visualized work instruction print on a single size sheet. The OPL solves a problem, improves a working method or process at a machine. Using OPL, action described can be taught quickly, therefore from one person to the other. The complete process, therefore, can have multiple OPLs. Whereas a work instruction,
probably consists of a couple of OPLs, more comprehensive.
Possibly. Work instructions are documented that clearly and precisely describe the correct way to perform certain tasks that may cause inconvenience or damage if not done in the established manner. That is, describe, dictate, or stipulate the steps that must be followed to correctly perform any specific activity or work. So I'd say, most of the SOPs are more work instructions, right? But they can be OPLs. 5 best practice strategies for writing work instructions. Aim for clarity. Above all, work instructions should be clear and offer no wiggle room in how a step could be interpreted. Make it accessible. Check and update for consistency. Use a credible source. Keep it short and simple. There you go.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, generally, I would say if you can break your SOPs into smaller segments that don't require a lot of huge, where you could get lost in the process.
Right.
Better if you can break it into chunks, and that chunk is really visible and it's completed, and on to the next one, I would think.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned your caustic dispensing. That's kind of an OPL. That would be cited in several different SOPs.
Yes.
Yeah. When I worked for Boeing, we did a lot of things that way. You'd have a specification and you have a work instruction, and spec might have several work instructions encoded in within it, in the same way, taking big processes, breaking them into manageable chunks
There you go.
and steps. Yeah.
All right, let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll wrap up the discussion of SOPs right after this. All right, we're back. Oh, those breaks, that's a good chance to get up and run to the bathroom and grab me a beer. Yeah, that's what we do today. The breaks seem so long. That's why.
Yeah. Nick asked another good question. Have we already covered the role of SOPs in certification and audits? Kind of.
Yeah, sort of. We're talking about the importance of SOPs and just defining that you have a safe and professionally run business kind of protects you in the case of accidents, injuries, and the audit of your process. One of the things that we do is we have a really nice commercial insurance company, and one of the benefits that they offer is they have people that can come and perform a mock OSHA inspection for you.
Oh, yeah.
So we take advantage of that. Once a year, we have them come out and go through the brewery and crawl around and look at everything and point out anything that they think, would be an issue. And one of the things that they'll do is look at the SOPs that we have. They look to see that we have, our chem safety book, readily accessible, and that everything's in there and up to date. They look at, also the structural things, but they do look at, SOPs as a big part of, properly maintaining your facility. And, if there was a lawsuit or something like that, I'm sure, they'd want to see the SOPs as well.
Yeah, that probably translates to better insurance rates for y'all.
Yeah, I don't know if it does, but it made me sleep better at night.
Yeah.
Because, it's just, it's so easy to, miss one tiny little thing. Interesting thing was we had when they put in the floor sinks, we had to have one near the boiler to drain the boiler and other stuff. And the cover that was put on the floor sink, it had an open half and a closed half. And the open half, the hoses would go into for draining in there. But they were saying, that's not quite safe. Somebody could step on that open half and, catch a toe and trip. And so they wanted me to replace that with a full grid, which I got on eBay. I think it was $30. Dropped it on there. That was like the only thing, but I'm really glad they did, because that clearly it was possible somebody could have, caught a toe or something and tripped. Never happened, because most people aren't wandering around there sticking their feet, under and behind things, but you never know. So I thought it was, very handy. I'd rather somebody points it out, before something happens, and we can take care of it, than waiting for someone to get hurt. And again, I think the SOPs are a big benefit there, because it kind of makes you think through what could happen, what could go wrong as you're cleaning a fermenter. You forgot to check that this was tight and that valve was closed, or you forgot that the valve needed to be open, and you need to get rid of the CO2 before you put in the caustic, because you're going to collapse your tank. All sorts of stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. Dry hopping waterfalls.
Right. And I'm one of the worst at it. I'm good when I write stuff down, but if you ask me to teach you in person, a lot of times, unless I've written it down, I'll forget to mention things that I do just out of habit.
Right. Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah. Well, again, that's kind of the role of SOPs, I think. And you know, I'm no expert at SOPs, but I do, you know, I don't think you need to be an expert at SOPs. I don't think you need to be an expert to brew,
Right.
you know, either. And you can brew good beer. I think, you know, the same thing goes for the SOPs. You should, but if you have definitely if you have a brewery, commercial brewery, you should be writing SOPs. You should take some time to write some SOPs. And I mean, if you're the only person that works there, I guess you can kind of skip it for now, but eventually you're going to bring another person in. And instead of having to tell that person everything and make sure you've gotten it correct, you can write it down and then you can make sure they follow it. Much better way of doing it. And, you know, the people that you bring in to your brewery that you hire, they will appreciate it too. They will feel, you know, better trained. You know, it's stuff that when you get people that want to work in a brewery, they want to learn. You know, I've not seen anyone come into a brewery not wanting to learn things, and it's a
Right.
great way of you know, having all that information.
Good. Good.
I
Well, I
guess we
think that
could
kind of sums it up.
publish a book of brewery SOPs, but you know, they don't necessarily apply to everybody, but
Yeah.
you know, it could be a starting point. People could take that and, you know, adjust them and use them as a jumping off point.
Hmm.
There you go, John. Our next book,
After I get these other books done. Yeah.
brewery SOPs.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be bad. We should pull that together.
Okay. It's an idea. Yeah.
Take all these
We'll do.
heretic SOPs and massage them into a book.
Yeah. Well, let's get the revision of brewing classic styles done first.
Yes, we got a lot to do. Busy, busy, busy.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in and listening to the podcast. Those listening live, appreciate your questions. Those listen off the podcast, no worries. Enjoy. Send an email to John at Blickman Engineering, or send it to feedback at Blickman Engineering. Just tell him how much you appreciate his decade of decades of support to home brewing and to the Brewing Network listener crowd.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. Well, till then, everybody, brew strong.
Brew strong, everyone.